did you start to ask yourself the question of what about Palestine?
Hello, American Jew here, and happy to answer this question. Like most Jews, I was raised being told that Israel was our land. It's always been our land. I was told this at Hebrew school. I went on birthright. I knew about the West Bank and Gaza, but even on birthright, I was essentially taught that Israel was just defending itself and that this situation regarding Gaza and the West Bank and the occupation there was just self-defense to protect Israelis. I was told that Israel was the only place that Jews would ever be safe. I was also basically raised to look at the Palestinian flag as a terrorist flag, that everyone in Gaza and the West Bank were dangerous, were bad, and the Free Palestine movement was essentially supporting terrorists. I'd heard words from other people like colonization or apartheid. I'd, seen the Free Palestine movement. And there was always a question in the back of my mind. How is it possible that this many people could support terrorists? There was always that question of, am I being told the full truth here? Anytime I tried to have that conversation with any of my Zionist friends, it was complete denial. They're terrorists, this is for the protection of Israel, etc., etc. And even at the beginning of, after October 7th, I was blocking anyone that was saying Free Palestine. I was repeatedly told that they're all anti-Semitic, that they all hate Jews, and that every single one of them thought that Israel needed to be wiped off the face of the earth. And I've done a lot of deconstruction even in the past couple weeks, and there were a lot of things that opened my eyes to the narrative that I had been taught was dangerous, one-sided, and not correct. The first thing that helped me to start to deconstruct was I started to look at the people that were unequivocally 100% pro-Israel, Israel's doing nothing wrong here. And I realized that there was a lot of people in that crowd that I don't normally agree with, a lot of people on the far right, and there was a lot of people that were known anti-Semites in that crowd. I started to think of the alternative reasons why people were supporting Israel. There was a video being shared of Joe Biden from years ago saying that Israel is the best $3 billion investment that America has ever made. That really got my wheels turning. I realized that a lot, probably all of these American politicians, whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's Trump, you name it, support Israel because it is an investment for America. It has nothing to do with protecting Jewish people or caring about Jewish people at all. It has to do with money, the benefits of the allyship that we have with Israel. I started to realize that there was quite a few politicians that were pro-Israel that are extremely anti-Semitic. I saw a video of Marjorie Taylor Greene calling Jewish Voices for Peace, which is a Jewish group that was protesting at the Capitol to cease fire. I saw her call that an insurrection. Marjorie Taylor Greene was quoted as to saying that all Jewish people have space lasers that control the weather. She is a known anti-Semite. I started realizing that a lot of people that support Israel were just Islamophobic. A lot of Christian nationalists support Israel because they think it's a biblical reckoning. All of those things kind of solidified in my mind that Zionism and Judaism are not the same. I started to think about those alternative motives that I mentioned, such as Israel being an investment for America, and realizing how biased the Western media is, and how they were painting their own specific narrative. And then I started to notice that a lot of Jewish people were anti-Zionist, including Orthodox Jews. In fact, I saw a video of Orthodox Jews saying that Zionism is against Jewish teaching altogether. So I decided to, instead of blocking out the Free Palestine people, I decided to actually listen to them. They essentially became so loud, and I was seeing Jewish people supporting this movement, that it just didn't make sense to me anymore that they were all supporting terrorists. Then I started to see what was going on in Gaza. I was seeing what on the news was being described as a humanitarian crisis. But on social media, where it's not so biased and you can hear both sides of the coin, I was seeing babies being blown to bits. I was seeing food, water, and electricity aid being cut off. I was seeing a totally different story than what the media was saying. I couldn't rationalize the idea of cutting off food, water, and electricity and preventing aid from going in to a population that is 50% children. I learned that Hamas is only about 0.02% of the population there. I looked at the children in Gaza and saw the horrors. The imagery is horrific. And I could not rationalize this in my head as just defense anymore. The human shields argument didn't make sense when it came to things like shutting off food, water, and electricity. Then I started researching Netanyahu. I started to think about, how did October 7th even happen in the first place? I've been to Israel. That place is built like a fortress. I read that he chose to fund Hamas instead of the PLO, which was a much more secular group that was willing to make peace with Israel. I saw videos of Netanyahu saying that he would never support a two-state solution, that he never wanted Palestinians to have equal rights. I heard that Egypt warned him. And then I realized that either this was the biggest failure of all time, or Netanyahu let this happen. I also watched Bassam Youssef, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, interview with Piers Morgan about this issue. I came across Jewish Voices for Peace, which was calling for ceasefire. I realized how many Jews opposed this retaliation that was going on. And that was when I just completely changed my perspective. I just could not justify what was going on anymore. And I felt like I was lied to, that I was swindled, that I was brainwashed, essentially. And it just totally shattered my worldview. So for all of those people out there that are speaking out about Palestine, keep speaking out about Palestine. You are changing people's minds.
First of all, I'm a Jewish woman. I was raised by a Zionist family. My grandfather was a Holocaust survivor. My family talks about our spirit of resistance and resilience constantly. Desiring goodness from the nation of Israel is in my blood, and still, I can see that this Zionist state is vicious, violent, and evil.
I don't recall one occupation in which the occupier presents himself as the victim. Not only the victim, the only victim. If to quote here the late Golda Meir, she once said that we will never forgive the Arabs for forcing us to kill their children. We are the victims. We are forced to kill their children. Poor us. And as the victim and the only victim in history, again, it enables us the rights to do whatever we want, and nobody is going to tell us what to do, because we are the only victims.
If someone who is raised by a Zionist family, by people who believe that Israel has the right to exist and that it is our salvation, if I can overcome my pro-Israel bias and learn about this conflict, so can you. And frankly, I should not be calling it a conflict, it's a genocide.